Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. So as you are all aware, we were discussing about the respiratory system. So we are going to cover the bronchi in today's lecture. Okay, so as you are familiar with this particular figure which shows the different organs of the respiratory system. So we have already covered the nose, pharynx, which is known as the throat. We have also seen what is a larynx, okay, why it is called as the voice box. That's because it aids in the voice production apart from being the part of the air passages. So also we have covered the trachea, which is commonly called as the windpipe. Okay. So the next part into which the air is passed is the bronchi. Okay. So this particular bronchi, these are actually the structures which branch off from the trachea. So far we have seen that there is a single tube like structure, right, apart from the nasal cavity, which is actually divided into two halves, okay, but there it is a single nasal cavity, so it is just partition. So far we have seen that there is a single structure which is conveying the air up to the trachea, but here onwards the branching of the structures is taking place. Okay, so just at the superior border of the fifth thoracic vertebra, the trachea, it divides into two branches. Okay, so the one which enters into the right lung, this is your right lung. So the one which enters into the right lung, it is known as the right pulmonary bronchus. Okay, the meaning of word bronchus is windpipe. Okay, and the one which enters into your left lung, that branch is known as the left pulmonary bronchus. Okay, so it divides into two bronchi. Okay, and these are known as the primary bronchi. Primary in the sense it is the first order division from the trachea. Okay, so that's why these are known as the primary bronchi, and there are two, each one of which enters into the respective lungs. Okay, now out of these two bronchi, the right primary bronchus, that's actually more vertical, as you can see. Okay, so its slope is steeper, right? So it is more vertical. Even it is shorter, as you can see that the primary bronchus, the right one, it further branches, right? So this portion is your right primary bronchus, whereas up to here is the left primary bronchus. So as you can see that the right one, it is also shorter. So also it is even wider as compared to the left one. Okay, the diameter is more of the right primary bronchus. Okay, so as a result of this, if there is any object which is aspirating into the respiratory tract, aspiration means any particles or particulate matter if accidentally enters into the respiratory tract instead of going into the esophagus, so that particular phenomenon is known as aspiration. Okay, so it is more likely to enter and get lodged in the right primary bronchus. That's because it is more vertical. So there is more chances of entering that particular subject into the right bronchus, right primary bronchus. Okay. Now these primary bronchi, these contain incomplete rings of cartilage. Okay, so if you can see the structure of the wall, it is made up of incomplete rings of cartilage. Okay, so as we have seen under trachea, it also comprises of these incomplete rings of cartilage, right, which are in the shape of C. Okay, so similar type of cartilages are present in the primary bronchi as well, and these are lined by the pseudo-stratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Okay. Now the point at which this division occurs, that is this one. So this particular point, it is marked by an internal ridge known as carina. That's the keel of boat. Okay, now this carina, it is formed by the tracheal cartilage, the last tracheal cartilage. It forms a ridge-like structure, internal ridge, and that is called as the carina, the point at which the division takes place. Now the mucous membrane which is present in this particular region, this is actually the most sensitive area which will trigger the cough reflex if at all any substance is entering into the, or any particulate matter is entering into the respiratory tract. So that's a more sensitive area. Okay. Now upon entering into the lungs, these primary bronchi further divide into smaller bronchi. Okay, so as you can see over here, branching has taken place, right? So this particular smaller bronchi into which the primary bronchi divide into each lung is known as the secondary bronchi on either sides, or these are also known as the lobar bronchi. Okay, now how many secondary bronchi it divides into? So that will depend upon the number of lobes which are present in the lung. Okay, so as you can see that these fissures, these are dividing the lungs into different lobes. As you can see, the right lung, it has how many lobes? There are 1, 2 and 3 lobes. Whereas in case of left lung, how many lobes are there? Are there 3 lobes? No. This particular fissure divides the left lung only into 2 lobes. Okay, so that's 1 and that's 2. Okay, so depending upon the number of lobes, the primary bronchus will further divide into that many numbers of secondary bronchi, right? So that's the second order of the division. Okay, now understood why it is known as the lobar bronchi. That's because each branch will enter into the specific lobe. Okay, so since the right lung has 3 lobes, how many secondary bronchi it will divide into? Yes, it will divide into 3 secondary bronchi or 3 lobar bronchi. And the left lung, it has only 2 lobes. So it will divide into 2 secondary bronchi or 2 lobar bronchi. So as you can see, this one, it is entering into this first lobe. Okay, so second one, this one, it is entering into the second lobe. Okay, so a representative one secondary bronchus is depicted over here. Okay, and the third one will enter into the third lobe. Whereas in case of the left lung, there are only two secondary bronchi. Okay, so this one is moving towards the first lobe and this one is moving towards the second lobe. Okay, now these secondary bronchi will continue to branch. So this, as you can see, that the branching continues, right? So this will continue to branch to form still smaller bronchi known as tertiary bronchi, or these are also known as segmental bronchi, because these are supplying a specific segment which is present within the lobe. So that's the third order of division. So that's why it is called as the tertiary bronchi. Okay, so that's the example of right tertiary bronchus, and that's the example of left tertiary bronchus. Okay, now further this tertiary bronchi will divide into still smaller tubes called as the bronchioles. Okay, so that's the bronchiole, left bronchiole, and that's the right bronchiole. So likewise, number of bronchioles will be present, right? These are the ones, these are the ones, okay, and so on. Okay, now further these bronchioles in turn will continue to branch repeatedly. So it will get divided into still smaller tubes called as the terminal bronchioles. These are the ones. As you can see, these very faint tubules, because these are very small in diameter. Okay, so as you can see, the branching from the trachea, the first one is the primary bronchi. So since there are two lungs, these primary bronchi, there are two primary bronchi, right and the left one. What about the secondary bronchi? That will depend upon the number of lobes. So either 2 or 3 secondary bronchi will be present depending upon which lung it is. Further, the secondary bronchi, they will divide into the tertiary bronchi. So a number of tertiary bronchi are present. Further branching will continue into still smaller tubes called as the bronchioles, which in turn will continue to divide into the terminal bronchioles. Okay, so this is the pattern of branching which takes place from the trachea. Okay, now these bronchioles, they contain specific types of cells called as the Clara cells. So also are present the columnar non-ciliated cells. Okay, non-ciliated means the cilia, will they be present over here? No, these are absent at this particular level. Okay, now what is the role of these Clara cells? Okay, so these have the protective function. So it protects the respiratory system from the inhaled toxins and the carcinogens. What are carcinogens? These are the substances which can cause the cancer, lung cancer. Okay, so it has protective function. Also it produces the surfactant. We will come to the role of surfactant, why surfactant is produced over here. Okay. So also these will function as the stem cells or reserve cells, which will help in the regeneration of the cells, worn out cells. Okay. So up to this level, that is up to the terminal bronchioles, as we have seen under the branching, it comprises the conducting zone. Okay, so we have seen that the respiratory system can be divided into two parts functionally, correct. So, one of it is the conducting zone, which helps in conducting the air towards the alveoli. So, that is the end of the conducting zone at the terminal bronchial. So, here onwards further branching will take place, and at these particular levels the exchange of gases will take place. Okay. So, this particular extensive branching from the trachea, which starts from the trachea up to the terminal bronchioles, so it resembles an inverted tree, like. So, as you can see that it looks like an inverted tree. So, if I invert that image, it looks like a tree, correct. Okay. So here the branching has occurred just like a tree. Imagine a tree without the leaves, it will look something like this, correct. So, this is the reason why this particular structural arrangement is called as bronchial tree. Okay, so this particular bronchial tree, composition of bronchial tree and the diagram of bronchial tree, it is very, very important. Okay. Now, as this branching takes place, okay, as it becomes more extensive, there are several structural changes which may be seen, okay, in the layers of the walls. Okay. Now, the first change which occurs is in the mucous membrane. The types of cells are different. Say for example, in case of the primary bronchi, secondary bronchi and tertiary bronchi, which is the first, second and the third order division. The types of cells which are present in these areas in the mucous membrane are the pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. Further, these tertiary bronchi, they branch into the bronchioles, right. Now, a little bit larger bronchioles, they comprise of ciliated simple columnar epithelium with goblet cells. Okay, now what is the meaning of the pseudostratified? You all must be aware of. Yes, pseudostratified are the types of arrangement of the cells wherein it looks like multiple layers, but actually it is single layer of the cells with different heights. That is why it looks stratified. Stratified means a number of layers. Okay, so pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium are present in these first three orders. Larger bronchioles, it comprises of ciliated simple columnar epithelium along with the goblet cells. Now, what is the role of goblet cells? Yes, what does it produce? Correct, it produces the mucus. Now, further, as these larger bronchioles will continue to divide in little bit smaller bronchioles, the types of cells which are present in the mucous membrane are ciliated simple cuboidal epithelium. Columnar means the height is little bit more, correct, column shape, whereas in case of cuboidal they will be cube shape. Now, here goblet cells are absent, that is the change. So, in this larger bronchioles goblet cells were present, but here in the smaller bronchioles the goblet cells are absent. And further, these bronchioles will divide into the terminal bronchioles. So, these contain the non-ciliated simple cuboidal epithelium. Okay, so as you can see at these 4 different levels, the types of epithelial cells are different. As you can see in these first 3 areas, the types of cells are ciliated, right? Okay, that means, what is the meaning of this? Ciliated means they contain the cilia. Now, what is the function of these cilia? They beat in a specific direction, right, to move the mucus and the trapped material in a specific direction. So, these cilia, they beat to remove any particulate matter which has entered in these regions towards the pharynx, so that it can be removed out of the respiratory system. Whereas in case of terminal bronchioles, the cells are non-ciliated. So, in this particular area, the cilia are absent. No cilia are present in this particular region. Okay. Now, these ciliated epithelium which are present, these will help in removal of the particles, right. So, as we have seen that mucus is produced by the goblet cells which will trap the particles, and these cilia, they will help in removal of this mucus along with the trapped particles towards the pharynx. So, it will be removed. So, this is the first way by which the inhaled particles can be removed. Now, what about the area wherein the non-ciliated cells are present, that is in the terminal bronchioles? There should be some mechanism to remove this, right. So, these particles, these are removed by the macrophages in this particular area where the cilia are absent. Okay. Then the next change which occurs is the cartilage. As we have seen in the primary bronchi, the cartilage which is present, it is in the form of incomplete rings, right, of the cartilage, just like trachea, C-shaped structure. But these are gradually replaced by the plates of cartilage. So, it will not be present in the form of incomplete ring, but small plates of cartilage will be present towards the anterior surface. And as further branching takes place, finally they will disappear in the terminal bronchioles. There will not be any cartilage present in the terminal bronchioles. And the third type of change which is seen is in the amount of the smooth muscles. Okay, so, as the amount of cartilage decreases, as we have seen, so the amount of smooth muscles goes on increasing. Okay. So, these smooth muscles, these are encircling this lumen of these tubules. Okay. So, they will help in maintaining the patency, that is to keep it open to certain extent. But as the cartilage disappears in the further branching, the muscle spasm which occurs, that is if these smooth muscles contract, it will result in closing of the airways. So, whatever lumen which is present, now these are the smooth muscles which are present, right, circularly. So, if these contract, what will happen? Their length will decrease and the diameter of the lumen will decrease, right. So, because of excessive muscle spasm, these airways in the terminal regions, specifically where the amount of smooth muscle is more and the cartilage disappears, right. So, in these areas, specifically in the terminal bronchioles, the muscle spasm can result in collapse of these tubules. So, this can precipitate an asthma attack, which can be life threatening. Because if these terminal bronchioles, if these constrict, what will happen? It will decrease the amount of air which you are breathing in, right? So, it will decrease the amount of oxygen availability. So, these can completely collapse. So, this particular situation can be a life threatening one. So, you need to give the assistance of bronchodilation, that is a smooth muscle relaxation should be produced immediately. So, in these situations the pumps are available, right? Okay. So, these particular drugs are in the form of aerosols. For immediate action, they will act directly on these smaller air passages. Okay, so this is to do with the bronchi. So, we have seen that the trachea branches into the two bronchi, that is the right and the left primary bronchi, which will enter into each lung. Further, it will be divided into the secondary bronchi, the right and the left regions. Okay, so these will divide depending upon the lobes, number of lobes. Further, the secondary bronchi, they will divide into the tertiary bronchi. So, this branching will continue and it will branch into the bronchioles. Further bronchioles will divide and ultimately they will result in the terminal bronchioles. So, also we have seen what are the different types of changes which are occurring in the walls of these tubules. Okay, so this is the reference. Thank you for watching.